Hi, this is Micornus, Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. We are continuing with this topic today that we speak about finances, but today I want to just zoom into common aspects that waste much church finances, those things that waste church finances more often. And we want to talk about this because that will help you to avoid wasting monies. It will avoid you wasting finances because you would be knowing exactly what causes financial drain in a church or waste of financial money or finances in the church. The first thing that I want to highlight is lack of financial education of church members cause them to be highly indebted. Therefore, they fail to give tithes, they fail to give offering, and so on. We may speak about tithes until we are blue on the face. We may speak about offering until we are blue on the face. But if the church members are in debts, they're indebted, they don't know how to use their money, they're owing everybody. They're having clothing accounts, they're having accounts everywhere where their money is just not staying in their hands. And month end comes, and the second day of the month end, all the money is gone. You know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you would understand that. Then, when you have members like that in the church that are not financially educated, they don't know how to manage their monies, you may scream and talk about finances in the church until you're blue on the face. That's not going to happen. So, this is very important that we do what we call financial education. We educate the people about how to manage money. If they know how to manage money and they have money themselves, they have then disposable money that they can be able to share with the kingdom, to share with the church, which is very, very important. Now, secondly, I want to mention the fact of unnecessary cost of renting in, and this is very important because there are people that are renting instead of having their own place. So, unnecessary renting in cases where the church could afford to buy its own land or building. But I must also say that there are those people that are not aware that they can buy their own land. They just so addicted to renting. And I'm being serious about this. We have seen churches that are just so obsessed about renting. They want to just rent and they don't want to actually just start initiating and buying their land. Some of the people don't buy their land because they feel that the land is expensive even without inquiring. So please, the money that you're using for renting anyway sometimes is very high and it's expensive that you could be paying actually that money for a land that you're already occupying. And that's very important that we highlight that to leaders, we highlight that to church visionaries as well. Very important that you gun for your own land, and that's very, very important. And when you have got your own land, then you will avoid unnecessary rentals. Now, the other thing is allowing leaders to resign from work before. Now we're talking about resigning from work before the church could afford their salaries, all in the name of full-time ministry. Now we have seen this happening as well. Now, secular job, there's no sin about being in a secular job. It's not sinful at all. So therefore, if you can hang on for a while and not resign, and resign only when the church can afford you as a leader, that becomes very important. Now, if we are going to have 3-4 pastors that are being paid salaries while they could still be in their secular jobs, so it may not be prudent enough. So I'm just emphasizing, as Church Governance Solutions, our advice is, even when you are a visionary, so please work as long as you can, because remember that a ministry, especially when you just started a ministry, it becomes very expensive to maintain. And we have seen that majority of the pastors suffer and they struggle and their families struggle after resigning. And therefore, there's no enough financial streams that can pay them, that can support them by that particular time. So if you can still hang on to a secular job for a while, so please just hang on until maybe the church can be at the state where it can afford you and your salary, so that they can actually afford you, they can pay you for supporting the family. So that's very important that we emphasize that. Because the concept of full-time ministry, it is necessary. Yes, I support it fully. And that is why I'm saying that if we can have churches that would actually hearken into understanding tithe, we have said this in the previous lesson, that if you can get a church that are full of tithers, people that believe in tithe, then you can easily actually get the senior pastor to resign from secular jobs so that he can focus or she can focus on the work of the ministry, because that's very necessary. Now, in that regard, then it won't be that you get the pastor to suffer without finances, his family or her family suffer without finances, and so on. To avoid that, and that's the reason why we say, please hang on for a while and don't resign quickly as a pastor. Just check if the church can afford you first before you resign. And that is the advice that comes from Church Governance Solutions. Now, we also going to mention that organizing lots of activities that are overburdening the budget of the church is something that's very common. We have seen that church runs so many conferences, 4 or 5 conferences a year. But then you look at the value, or what we call return on investment, it's not even there. And sometimes you actually invite outside speakers, and many of them. Now, I want to also say this, that many times when you invite speakers for conferences, it is not just a norm that you should invite a speaker per day. No, it must not just be a norm. Sometimes it is actually more prudent to actually get one speaker to do about 3 days for you. And if a speaker doing 2 days and so on, it becomes a bit more cost effective, particularly also the fact that sometimes when you invite speakers, invite those that are in the locality than somebody that you would fly all the way from overseas and keep them in a hotel and still pay them honorarium. So check the finances. Check how grown and mature the church is. Check if your church can afford that. Because if your church can afford, why not? But we speak about the church when it's still very small. The activities should be managed as well. And therefore, priorities on the activities should be in line with the plan of the vision. So because the vision is very key here to build the brand in the vision. So that can only be that if you got activities that are adding value to the vision, and those are the ones that should be prioritized. And that is why a year planner then it becomes key that you plan and have a year planner. But in the year planner, you put those activities that are valuable, those activities that are adding value. And if they don't add value, so please don't organize those activities. And we emphasize in this because it's very key that we understand that activities can be very costly as well. So also, over-reliance on guest speakers for daily running of the church becomes very costly as well. We have seen churches whereby the senior pastor can just not preach on themselves. They cannot just run the activities in the church themselves. So they rely on guest speakers. They forever invite people outside, even for their Sunday meetings, even for their Sunday church services. And because of that, then you have to pay transport for a minister from outside. You have to pay honorarium as well, a thank you of the finance. So it's very important that you become very careful about that, because if you would do the service by yourself, it would actually be cost effective. So we want to emphasize that don't over rely on guest speakers. Make sure that you are able to run your services without guest speakers sometimes, whereby you can even use your own members to run some of the activities in the church than to invite somebody from outside. So we are saying it is good to invite somebody from outside, but let it be occasionally, please. Let it not be every Sunday, because that will be very, very costly to do so. And we emphasize as Church Governance Solutions that inviting speakers is a good thing, but also make sure that you invite them prudently. And that's the reason why we want to say when you invite guest speakers from flying distances to address a topic that can be addressed by a walking speaker. So a speaker here can walk to your church and address the same topic that you've actually invited a flying speaker. So you get exactly the conjunction there, that it is not actually in line. If you're going to invite somebody that you're going to fly into the country and also accommodate them in hotels and so on, while you're having the local neighborhood pastor that can come and address the same topic. So that's very important that you save money that way. Now, we also are going to bring about purchasing cheap assets and equipment in the name of saving cost. is very, very expensive. Cheap is not always cheap. And we want to emphasize that. And please, as a pastor, please consider this as very important. Now, when you buy things of low quality and say because they are cheap, they are going to be having a high replacement value because you're going to keep on changing them and replacing them and so on, then it becomes very, very expensive. Repairing them is very expensive as well. So please be careful of that and make sure that you do buy quality stuff that will last longer. Very, very important. So there is increasing cost as well. So please avoid that and make sure that you are actually using quality that will be long stay without just replacements of everyday equipments and so on, particularly the equipments, your instruments and so on. Very, very important that we emphasize that. And you make sure that you get quality at all times, not just cheap, because as I said, cheap is not cheap. Cheap can be very, very expensive for you. I'm going to end up here today, your host, Micornus, Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governor Solutions. Thank you very much for following us on these platforms and listening to us. And I want to say that follow us on our Facebook channel, Micornus Phokane. Like that and like the Facebook page, Church Governor Solutions as well. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click notification buttons in those platforms as well. Don't forget our TikTok account as well, which may be handy for you. We are going to check out right now, but before we check out, we want to remind you that we continue with this topic about finances tomorrow. So please hang on and as we finalize and wrap up this topic about finances tomorrow, it may be very useful for your church and yourself as a leader as well. And your church may be having a potential of growth, and it could be actually restricted by the financial management in your church. In this case, when you learn, you would actually increase the potential of finances in your church again. Allow me to check out right now here and say cheers for now.